Picking up where Mr. Woodard left off, he was talking about types of memories, how to get those memories into our long-term memory. So flashbulb memories, for instance, those are moments that have real great significance emotionally for us. So we have a tendency to store those memories. As Mr. Woodard said, they're not always perfectly recorded, but they're going to be stored in some way, shape, or form because they have this emotional impact on us. He talked about ways to store memories on our own using mnemonics, the testing effect, the spacing effect, shallow processing versus deep processing. So how to get memories into the long-term memory. So I'm going to pick up now and start talking about how to pull those memories out of long-term memory, get them onto the piece of paper for the test or into the conversation when we're telling stories. So recall and recognition. Hopefully you've done the 7 dwarves exercise. And so when we're talking about that particular exercise in conjunction with these terms, we start talking about recall. That was the first thing that we asked you to do. When we just say, hey, what are the 7 dwarves' names? Well, now you've got to recall that versus recognizing them in a list. They're buried in that list with 15, 20 names, but it's easier to pick them out when you have the list. That's recognition. On a test, recall would be like your short answer. Recognition would be like your multiple choice. Okay, recall and recognition. Relearning is just a term that it goes back to the testing effect. The more often that you test yourself on something, the less time it's going to take to recall or recognize information. Okay, you're saving yourself time the more you go back, test yourself on it. Okay, I'm not going to do this one. Retrieval cues. So bringing a memory to consciousness, you can use a mnemonic device. Okay, that's some sort of trick that you've used in your brain to get that memory into long-term memory, and you can use that same trick to pull it out of long-term memory. So Mr. Woodard was talking about the method of loci. If you have memories planted around a room and you go back to that room and you find the memories around that room. Priming. This is what I did with the pop, and then instead of go, you probably said stop with those questions. So this is when you retrieve memories from cues that you aren't consciously thinking of. So you're answering top, you're answering pop, and then all of a sudden the next answer is go, but you've been primed. Your brain is already thinking of a connection with the previous answers to questions, so you want to say stop, even though that's the wrong answer. Okay, priming was one of the quiz questions that we had about going into a house that you lived in 10 years ago. And as you go into that house, just the environment primes you to pull memories from your years living there. And other factors affecting retrieval, we've all had this happen, the tip of the tongue phenomenon. You know it. You know the answer. You can't quite say it. I don't know how many times I've watched Jeopardy and I know the answer, but I can't quite say it. And as soon as the person on the TV starts to say the answer, I say it as well. Because I hear them start to say it. Oh, there it is. And capital of North Dakota might be on the tip of your tongue. It's Bismarck, by the way. Mood congruent memory. This is an interesting one. Kind of goes back to those flashbulb memories, but it doesn't have to be a big, powerful moment. Memories that we store when we're in an emotional state are more easily recalled when we're in that same emotional state later on. So if we have a real terrifying experience, bear in the woods chased me, I might be better able to recall that memory, or I should say that memory will surface without me even trying to surface it if I'm in like an anxious mood or a scared mood. Memories that are stored when you're in a happy mood might come back to the surface when you're in a happy mood. And again, it's not because you're trying to recall happy memories, it's just that you're in a good mood, and so memories from previous good moods surface. That's the mood congruent memory. Serial position effect is one of the famous ones. They love asking about this on the AP exam. It's a really easy concept. You take a list and you say, okay, you got to memorize this list. Well, the serial position effect says you're going to remember the terms at the beginning and at the end of that list better than you will the terms in the middle of the list. I don't know if Mr. Woodard has done the exercise that we have for you. He might do that. I might do it. I haven't done it quite yet when you watch this video, but it's very easy to see how the serial position effect affects our memory. Well, again, we'll remember the things at the beginning of a list and the end of a list much more easily than the middle of a list. You might have had this with vocab freshman or sophomore year, where you had a vocab list, and for some reason, you knew the beginning of the list and you knew the end of the list. It's those words in the middle that throw you off a little bit. That's just because of the serial position effect. And what does that tell us? Well, use the serial position effect to your advantage. Hey, I know that I'm going to probably remember those words a little bit better, and then work to develop some mnemonic devices for the middle of the list if you're having trouble with it. Encoding specificity principle. If you saw in the book, there was that little sidebar, and it talked about people that heard words while they were actually underwater did a better job retrieving those words when they were underwater again versus taking a little bit of a test on those same words when they were out of the water. Okay, encoding specificity. You're going to encode using cues, specific cues from the environment that's around you. Okay? It's one of the reasons that with standardized tests, you have to take the test in a different room, usually, than where you've learned the material. So, like for the AP exam, you can't take that in Mr. Woodard's and Mr. Davis's room because that gives you an advantage. Because you're taking just because of the cues of the room can help you recall things more easily. So in order to truly learn the material, testing effect, test yourself in different areas. Go home and test yourself on the stuff that you learned at in psychology when you were at the school in normal times. In today's world, if you do all of your studying in your room, go to a different room. Go outside. Try testing yourself on a walk. Test yourself in different areas to kind of break that encoding specificity principle so that if you have to take a test or if you have to recall that information in a different environment, you'll more easily be able to do so. Okay. All right. Why does memory sometimes fail us? You know what? I've talked for about 7.5 minutes. This is a pretty natural point to stop, so I'm going to let Mr. Woodard take over from here.